Hello, welcome back to our conference, all of you, those who are participating here live and who are watching us on the online streaming. That's me, moderator here, Vytautas Bruveris. I'm editor-in-chief of national news agency ELTA. And I'm finding myself on the floor of the panel discussion, which is called Exploring Integration, Expert Insights on Ukrainian, Russian, and Belarusian Communities in the Baltic States. There is said Baltic States, but naturally we will be more exploring and finding the experience and situation, reality on the ground, first of all in Lithuania, in the country where we are right now. So, and I'm more than happy to present our distinguished panelists on the issue. This is Dr. Monika Frejutė Rakauskienė, senior researcher in the head of Department of Ethnic Studies at the Institute of Sociology, Lithuanian Center for Social Sciences. Also, we have here a Ukrainian colleague, Yevgen Magda, Associate Professor at Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute and the National Technical University. We have here colleague Egor Burtsev, a clinical psychologist, social psychologist, and also sociologist. And Dr. Rosa Turarbekova, PhD in History, Honorary Fellow of Institute for Global and Sustainable Development, University of Warwick. And we are kicking off from the presentation of Dr. Frejutė Rakauskienė, which the title you see here, Public Attitudes Toward Different Social, Ethnic, Religious, and Immigrant Groups in Lithuania in the last year. So that will be our grounds for our discussion, reaction, insights, and everything else. So the main constructing point of our conversation today here. So. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction and the title of my presentation. But first of all, let me talk about migration context and numbers a little bit. So according to the Department of Migration and the Ministry of the Interior, more than 227 foreigners currently live in Lithuania. And it makes 8% of the total Lithuanian population, and three largest groups of foreigners living in Lithuania, according to citizenship in the beginning of 2024. We are Ukrainians, over 86,000, who majority of them are war migrants, war refugees. Belarusians, over 62,000 of people, and Russians, over 15,000 of people. What groups we included into this survey? Our Department of Ethnic Studies has been conducting such survey since 2005. And the questions mainly measure social distance to different ethnic, religious, and other social groups. But since 2008, we decided to include questions about migrant groups, labor migrants, and also integration policies. But in 2023, we decided to focus more on the three dominant migrant groups in the country. Rather than on the specific ethnic groups living in Lithuania. That is, the questionnaire, we only measure social distance towards certain generalized social groups, and three migrant groups from Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia. So here you can see the characteristic of public opinion poll, and it is conducted in 27 November 2023. And what is being asked or measured? So social distance, how we measure social distance by two questions. There are Bogardo scale, American sociologist scale, but we use usually two questions. That is, we asking if you would like or would not like live in neighborhood with a representative of some groups, and if you would like or would not like to work in the same workplace. And also we asked our citizens about acceptance of non-EU citizens as residents. So let's go to the data and to the results, and to the first question: which of the following groups of people would you not want to live with in your neighborhood? You see that social distance can be seen in relation to 4 groups: people with mental disabilities, homosexuals, Muslims, and migrants from Russia. A slightly smaller but still significant distance is seen in relation to the other groups, and the smaller social distance is seen in relation to migrants from Ukraine. And if to talk about 3 groups of migrants from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, the attitudes of the residents reflect, I would say, the geopolitical aspect or situation, where migrants from Russia are seen as representatives of aggressor country, and more favorably than migrants from Belarus and especially Ukraine. So the next the next slide, I just put it to see and to compare how the data changes from the 2024, and we can see that social distance has increased significantly for almost all groups, and in particular social distance has increased for people with intellectual disabilities and homosexuals. I would say that this increasing in negative attitudes could also be methodological, since when some specific ethnic, racial, or religious groups and abstract groups such as ethnicity, religion of another race are named together in a survey, then the specific ethnic, racial, or religious groups are viewed less favorably than the abstract groups. And if to go to the next question, which measure social distance, that is, which of the following groups of people would you not want to work in this same workplace? We can see that okay. You can see that this social distance is quite similar, like in answering the question if you would like or would not like to live in neighborhood. But here you can see I have to point out one special group, that is people who do not speak Lithuania. And more people, for example, 24% you can see, do not want to work with people who not speak Lithuania in the same workplace than live in the neighborhood. 22% said that they do not want to live in the neighborhood with people who do not speak Lithuanian. And I would say that such results are related to the Russian language, and due to the Russian started war in Ukraine and decreasing prestige of Russian language in society, as well as the fact that more and more public discussions are held on the attitudes of the population towards the increased use of Russian language in public sphere, in the service sector, for example, taxi drivers, and in everyday situations where partly due to the increased number of migrants from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia, the use of Russian as language of conversation is becoming more common. And if to compare the data with the 2022. We can see also that social distance has also increased in 2023, and especially in to particular groups, so people who do not speak Lithuanian, Muslims, people of other non-traditional Christian faith, and people of a different skin color and race. And the other slide that I would like to show to you is, do you agree or disagree that Lithuania should accept non-EU citizens to reside in Lithuania, and how you here you can see all the basis or reason why migrants come to Lithuania, such as migrants who illegally crossed the Lithuanian border, labor migrants, political refugees, war refugees, visiting family members in Lithuania, and arriving to Lithuania for studies. And in this question about different types of migrants, the most positive attitudes to those who come to Lithuania to study, to those who come to Lithuania for family reunification, and war refugees. Attitudes towards political refugees are divided, I would say, into roughly equal groups of people, of what some people are more in favor of the arrival of such people, and I think this is related to migrants from Belarus, and the related political debate about migrants who can be a threat to national security and can represent Belarusian national structures and carry out provocations. But some of them think that these Belarusian are political refugees and see them like group who are welcome to Lithuania. The most unpopular group of migrants are those who cross the border illegally, and this is of course related to the so-called hybrid attacks in 2021 by Belarus, and which are now diminishing, but still is a concern in terms of threat to the security of members of our society. So labor migrants also are viewed ambivalently, which with some wanting them to come, supporting the view that they can fill vacant jobs, and other opposing the arrival, possibly in the context of the competition for cheaper labor on the labor market and the penetration of the Russian language in the service sector, as I said earlier. And the last slide I would like to show to you, sorry this is in Lithuanian, but I shortly commented. We asked the question, would you support or oppose integration measures for refugees living and arriving in Lithuania? And as in previous surveys, the most important measures named by people which we support, the measures which we support is education of migrants' children, organization of Lithuanian language courses, assistance with documentation, organization of work qualification courses, and free legal advice. And measures such as housing and social benefits are not supported, presumably because of some competition with local inhabitants. And for example, when it comes to ensuring equal services in the field of health or equal rights at work, it is understood that both Lithuanian citizens and refugees should be guaranteed equal services and rights in a human sense. However, Lithuanian society thinks that more privileged rights for citizens in this area should be guaranteed. And I would say that this is also reflect realities faced by Lithuanian citizens themselves because of the hard, how to say, access to health service, also as well as tensions in access to social housing and labor market, working conditions, rising inflation, and economic instability. And I will stop here. If you have questions, please ask. And
maybe I want to use my right as a moderator to give you one question. I was caught by the slide where there was shown that during the year, since 22 to 23, the hostility of the society to all the groups who are regarded and seen as not belonging to us, of some kind of aliens, yeah? Persons with mental disabilities. It's interesting to see that most alienated groups are persons with people who are regarded as not belonging to us, to our society. These are persons with mental disabilities, homosexuals, then Muslims, and then others. But the hostility towards all the groups have risen significantly. What is your take? What is the main reason for that?
Yes, first of all, as I said, it's influenced by methodologies because earlier we named groups like Russians, Poles, I don't know, Syrians or other groups who lived in Lithuania, but now we generalized such groups. Okay. So I think some of the percent and racing in the...
It's interesting how the groups of Belarusians and Ukrainians overlap with the group non-speaking, non-Lithuanian speaking people.
I think it overlaps, but
what amount?
But what I would like to see, another thing that since I said that we are doing such public opinion polls since 2005, we can see that how to say it's pity, but nothing changes. I mean that those unfavorable groups are in the top of the how to say of these groups who society do not want to see in Lithuania, or social distance toward them are biggest. So I would say that nothing changes except the group of the people who do not speak Lithuanian. This year it is
higher.
Increasing. Yes, it's higher than earlier data. So yes.
That's a tendency I want to speak about first and foremost, because you can see, being here in Lithuania, I can share my authentic, so to say, experience from the ground in Latvia and Estonia, but I think it might be some similar tendencies. But here in Lithuania, you see very clear tendency of rising, so to say, Russia, not Russophobia, but Slavophobia, so to say, Russian-speaking phobia, Russian-speaking people phobia, yeah? You can see really this trend, which is in society, which is called, you know, this famous Russian word, "понаехали." Okay, you can, a lot of people are, more and more people in the social networks, they are sharing this, you know, you can't hear any Lithuanian word anymore in the Vilnius downtown. Everybody is speaking Russian, and all they are, of course, almost 99% they are members or mentally members of the Russian world, Ruski Mir and something like that. You can see the politicians who exploit that. You can see some, I don't know, even deep state structures who are playing with these sentiments and tendencies. Mr. Magda, your analysis, what is the main reason? And is there some fault in that tendency of the Russian and Belarusian minorities and refugees who are here? Maybe they were for too long too close, hoping that they are only temporary here, that it's enough for them to live in their own, so to say, social bubbles, because the day after, or 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months after, they will have the opportunity to return. But we clearly see that it is not the case, and being them too late to overreach to Lithuanian society, another people from the Lithuanian society who are having not a such goodwill, they start to exploit. They have upper hand now in exploiting the situation.
Дякую. Я буду говорити українською, тому кому треба.
So if you have, there is an interpreter, I think.
Взагалі, давайте почнемо ці дискусії з
In
головного.
this discussion, let's start from the most important things. This migration crisis has been started by the Ukrainian-Russian war. There is no other reasons.
Це головне.
And this is the most important.
Я кажу,
The crisis, when I speak about crisis, I mean in the scale of Europe, not only in Baltic countries, but in Europe. For the Baltic countries, the citizens from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, it is often a possibility, an opportunity, and not actually a challenge, but it is an opportunity to replace own citizens who have left further to the Scandinavian countries, to Great Britain, etc. However, we have a different paradox. And there's a famous thesis about the Slavic trio of Ukrainians, Belarusians, and this is a very most favorite mythical expression from the 18th century. And this expression is being implemented in life, as we have seen here in this research. This is a very interesting phenomenon, and I have pointed out that Ukrainians are more numerous than Russians and Belarusians altogether. Russians are on the third place, and I think for them it is a very big hit on their self-esteem. I don't know how they are going to survive this. Of course, this is a joke. However, what I would like to say is that Russian-Ukrainian war is destroying not only Ukraine, it destroys the status of Russian language as a universal language of communication on the post-socialistic, post-Soviet space. Think, how do you communicate with your colleagues? For Ukrainians, for instance, I can switch into Russian, speaks Russian, but I don't want to do that. And I, personally, with any Russian Kremlin person, I'm ready to sit down and write a dictation, national dictation, and show my ability. But this is not the issue. The issue is that the status of the Russian language, Russian culture, canceling of Russian language, what is happening right now is not always rational, of course, and we need to speak about this. However, I think that Russia uses the status of Russian language as one of the languages of the UN only due to the impotence of the United Nations organization. And here we're observing a very interesting fact. From Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, only Ukraine does not have a common border with Lithuania. However, if we can judge the relationship, Ukrainian-Lithuanian relationship right now seems to me less problematic, the lesser problematic, because we have common history of the Great Duchy of Lithuania, but we don't have the contemporary challenges. Smuggling, different territories, the challenges regarding the territories. We are reminding ex-spouses that have separated peacefully and now can communicate with one another peacefully. And it is a natural process for us, while Russia, with other imperial things, I mean, in this case, the Belarus of Lukashenko, the official one, by their behavior, they're creating challenges to Lithuania, with Lithuania. So here's the recipe, and it's very simple. The recipe is identification. Our diasporas in many countries, it's not a big secret if I'm going to say that until 2014, before the annexation of Crimea, in many countries, Ukrainian and Russian diasporas were in very good terms with one another. However, after 2014, the situation has changed. The diaspora is also an instrument of politicians. And I'm trying to point out that right now we're observing the process of forming Ukrainian and Belarusian political nation. And you're going to observe it, including in Lithuania, because tens of thousands of Ukrainian and Belarusian civilians are going to affect on their national identity. And the Russians, the question is going to be either identification of imperial or democratic one. Thank you. So this is the issue from the perspective of Lithuania, as far as I understand. We can see the tendency here that Belarusians and Russians, Lithuanians are looking at them as at one individual group. Do you think that they're equalizing one another? Because we understand that the sociology does not show this. And we can see that there's a difference. However, this tendency is there of this equalization. I think that the problem is that in Belarus, since 1995, after the ratification of the constitution, the two languages and the Russian language has basically become bigger than the Belarusian, and this challenge is happening in Lithuania as well. So in Poland and Belarus, there's the most Belarusian immigrants. And also, of course, in Ukraine, we don't have many immigrants in Ukraine for a variety of reasons. Let's not talk about that here. However, with Rosa, for instance, communicating while she's speaking Belarusian and I am speaking Ukrainian, we understand one another, and many Russians do not understand either of us. I think that this aspect is very important because I'm trying to understand how Lithuanian society needs to support the formation of Belarusian community.
We're turning now back to our supposed main language of our discussion, and I'm turning to Igor Burtsev. What is your general take? What the most important things you see? First of all, the first one from this survey. It's a question number one, and number two. As a sociologist, of course, you regard as a natural process that hostility in the so-called title society, it is rising naturally when there are growing and rapidly growing numbers of incoming people from other countries. Yeah, so how to turn this natural process to some, I don't know, to more peaceful and more and less alienating way. So these are two kind of questions.
About the research, I think that the first that I remember is that I was, I myself, I'm from Russia, from St. Petersburg, and in university 2 or 3 months before getting my diploma, I was telling the students who are aliens, and I'm speaking now about stereotypes, and yes, there are two sides of the coin, not only the nation that usually doesn't accept migrants, but there are some migrants who have their own preferences, and maybe here the stereotypes are much more alike. So maybe that's my take. And also I would like to say that this month we have conducted a second survey, second research about migrants from Russia, and we have researched their psychological state, and of course there are some migrants from Russia, and and their families. Sometimes these are relatives of the wife, relatives of the husband, and they have their own understanding on life and how life should be. But there are other migrants in Lithuania, and usually they're not getting better; they're getting worse because they don't see any hope. They don't understand what is going to happen next. And if Ukrainians can still think that maybe war will be over and they can go back to their country, unfortunately, migrants from Russia, they do not even know what their future might hold for them.
Then there is an obvious way: integrate yourself.
And the second take that I would like to vocalize is what Anna has mentioned, speaking about teenagers. Approximately the same situation is true for adults. It is more of an adaptation, not integration, because this making yourself into your own cocoon, in your own bubble, psychological bubble, this is what is happening, because this is unprecedented for Russian migrants. This has happened before to Belarusians, or is already happening to Ukrainians, but those democratic, those Russians who have democratic views, they feel inferior. They understand their country is aggressive. They are afraid even to communicate with Ukrainians because they feel guilt very deep inside. And in order for them to start integrating, they need to have some time for adaptation. And again, integration is when both sides work on that, because tango, it takes two to tango, as we know.
Okay, tango, the two persons are dancing tango. So I'm again repeating that I see this obvious rise of the, and first of all and primarily against the Russian immigration, hostility, and this general notion, ideological notion that they are all the same. These are imperially and mental imperialists of different, so to say, only of different degree of aggression. So they must be excluded. They don't belong here, and so on and so on. So these are two processes going like two trains, and there is maybe going to be some train wreck in some.
Imperialism, of course, Russians do bring imperialism with themselves, imperial mentality. And speaking about those Russians who are more conscious, yes, they of course say, for example, that banks do not operate in a way that they operate in Russia, and they stop themselves because they understand that. And they say, we're going to move forward because this country is not suitable for us. So, but these people exist in all nations, of course, and there are a lot of stereotypes from the Lithuanian side also. Lithuanians hold a lot of stereotypes, but imperial mentality, what can be juxtaposed to it? For example, if we now live in the country where we no longer need to have imperial mentality, where we can just live as citizens, where we understand that there are human rights and they're not being infringed, when we understand that we are not going to be persecuted for our free ideas and so on.
What are your thoughts on the things which were said, especially in that relation of so-called local title societies, and specifically Lithuanian and this diasporas, Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian? First of all, Russian-speaking Ukrainian diaspora.
Дякую, великий.
I have a problem. Which language should I speak? Any language. Thank you.
I will explain my personal case and my Belarusian case. Since you are looking at me, unlikely you think that I'm from Belarus and I'm Belarusian. That is why I have a very interesting experience. Back in the days, I was integrated back into Belarusian society because I was from Kazakhstan, and it took me a while to integrate into Belarusian society, even though it's post-Soviet society, and Kazakh society. Both of them are post-Soviet. They're very different, and my experience was very, very long. It took me 25 years, and throughout these 25 years, 8 years, for 8 years I was the citizen of Kazakhstan, and then afterwards I took Belarusian citizenship. I didn't have any challenges because of the language. Belarusian language and history I was studying by myself, and I didn't take any courses or any other process of naturalization. It was happening by itself because my husband is a historian, and he suggested me to read literature in Belarusian, and after through literature, by speaking with him in one way or the other, I was learning Belarusian, but Belarusian language was not very active, and for me, at my workplace, Russian language was more than enough for me, even though I was teaching at the Faculty of International Relations. It was one of the most prestigious universities in the country. And after 5-7 years, I understood Belarusian language, and I could explain myself and fill in the document. I felt quite well, and the experience of integration to Belarusian society was quite easy because of formal instances with the Belarusian government. It was very intolerable, not because of the laws, but practice of integration through Ministry of Internal Affairs. When I was speaking with the representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Internal Affairs, it was just personally very unpleasant experience, because when I came to Belarus, it was clear that this country is not following the democratic track. It was 1998. It was very clear where they are headed, and it was reflected on the governmental work and migration departments. So I have this experience, on one hand, very soft integration from the perspective of professional track and personal instances, language. However, a very difficult process of specifically legalization, I would say, in the other way. So these processes, do they often differ on dynamic in different countries? So yeah, basically I have a very good way to compare the two countries, because I was integrating in Lithuania, and this is where I'm headed. So this practice of relationship with the militants, with the police workers, and when I received the Belarusian passport, I had to go every half a year, and I had to meet with a manager of the department, and it was very difficult.
So for me, it's just a bit difficult to compare, but yeah, it is complex here, and it's also quite challenging because we need to learn Lithuanian language, and you have to accept that from the start. It's not a problem for me because, well, you know, for some people from Belarus, as far as my experience goes, it's a deep psychological problem, because one Belarusian lady, I will not tell you the surname, she was quite famous. You mean Karic? No, another. It wasn't official. She was saying, how am I going to learn Lithuanian and show people from my country that? Because that would mean that I am here for a long time. Yes, this is a psychological aspect that I do understand, but I think this is the question that we're giving ourselves, and we have to answer it not having in mind that it's a Lithuanian language and that means that we're going to stay here, we learn Lithuanian language in order to communicate here and all in all feel part of this society. This doesn't mean that we're going to stay here. And again, here we speak about political immigration. I'm thinking here about political immigration. And thank you, Lithuanian Minister of Interior Affairs, for humanitarian corridor, which meant for many Belarusians that they could escape torture, escape imprisonment, could have their children not taken from them by social services, and so on and so forth. This is not what that I heard it from somebody, but this is my own experience, my personal experience. And Belarusian immigration started in 2020. It wasn't related to the war, and it was a completely different story. Yes, Belarusian immigration historically, the main reason for immigration are repressions and persecution that started in 2020, and it has become only harsher in the past 3-4 years and more cruel. And my husband has 6 articles. I have 3 articles that I am being persecuted for, according to the that are incriminated to us, me and my husband. Why? Because my husband entered the coordination council, earlier than me, 6 months earlier than me, and I entered it later. So here they're incriminating him more articles, and this is nothing to be proud about, but this is just a fact. So the question of integration, for me personally, what was surprising and pleasantly surprising. So I told you about the integration in Belarus, and now telling you about the integration in Lithuania, for example, about International House, about migration officials. They are all fantastic, and I have fantastic experience. Why? Because before I had experience of living in Germany for some time, and again, I don't want to say anything bad about Germany at the moment, but it's quite different and not in favor of Germany. So for me personally, Lithuanian language is a big challenge that psychologically I am starting to take on board. So only psychologically, I haven't yet started learning it, but I do accept this challenge and I do want to learn Lithuanian language. And of course, it's a big challenge for my family because I have moved here together with my daughter. Daughter cannot yet go to school, and I'm not going to mention why at the moment, but for her it's also going to be quite a big challenge in the future. So, but legalization and integration-wise, here the conditions are perfect. They are fantastic. For example, comparing it to Belarus, where I also had to integrate when I came from another country, and comparing to Germany, where I have lived for 7 months, and I had to interact a lot with their officials, for example, migration department officials. So psychologically, everything is great here, and especially if those migrants, groups of migrants, had this definite leave to remain, and they could compare, and they would be explained all of this process. Because when we go through the process of legalization, when we get insurance, when we get our entrepreneurial activities, when we pay taxes, and so on and so forth, all the communication with Lithuanian officials, all of this is simplified process. It's a good tempo that we're taking. Sorry, I just would like to finish because I just need to say that. About Belarusians and Lithuanians and their communication, I think you all know that this problem about securitization and the thing that Belarusian national minority state, because some of them have definite leave to remain, indefinite leave to remain in Lithuania, some of them are already citizens of Lithuania. And according to this status, you know, statuses are different, and we are all, of course, united by, we're united sort of, but at the same point we are different psychological states. Some have fled because, you know, for political reasons. Others are labor migrants, and this is a completely different story. So from this point of view, I think it is very important to understand and differentiate these groups, because we have 62,000 Belarusian migrants at the moment in Lithuania. Statuses are very different. Also, securitization and everything which is related to Litvinism, this, as you know, this hybrid threat that, as we can now know, this is not a threat that is initiated by political migration of Belarus, but this was initiated just to intensify the relations between Belarusian and Lithuanian citizens. Thank you. Yes, thank you. This is all that I wanted to say.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and insights. We could discuss this issue, of course, for several hours, but the time is merciless. Still, I always want to include a little, to give the opportunity for the audience to interact, to give some maybe remarks, replies, questions to our panelists. Please, you are most welcome. Okay, so I'm turning to our panelists to wrap up our panel in some maybe sharing your insights and concluding remarks about how to fix, to face the situation of these two tendencies. That from the one side we see that there are a lot of reasons why these communities, why these immigrant communities in countries, in our country, they are in many respects too late to reach out, to make the reach out moves, to integrate. They are reluctant, too late from different reasons, and psychological ones too. And from other side, from the so-called title society, they see this reluctance and this being late as some symptom and some proof that they are right in being more and more increasingly hostile to those communities. What must be done in that situation? What is your take on that, Monica?
Yes, I just wanted to say some words or remarks about your saying about the stereotypes, and that both sides have these stereotypes. And we also, talking about public opinion, we also ask questions from where you get information about, for example, these groups, Muslims, immigrants, etc., etc. So mostly like major percent are from mass media, and mass media reflect discussions of politicians and etc., etc. And when we ask about social contact, so there are no social contact with those groups, and especially immigrants. And also,
you mean among the Lithuanian?
Yes, among Lithuanian population, and. So the lack of that social contact is very important. And for example, I am also doing research, qualitative research, and I talk to Belarusian immigrants. Mostly of them are by political reasons there. Yes, and when I ask about their, I don't know, leisure time in Lithuania, or what they are doing, do they coming around Lithuania, or do they have contacts with Lithuanians? So it's a pity, but no, and they are closely closed in the
so
community.
More contact, more
yes,
dialogue.
Yes, more dialogue.
Person-to-person contacts is the cue.
Connection,
Sure.
Yes.
Still several minutes left. Evgeny.
Я думаю, що ми маємо навчитися, попри важкість викликів,
difficulties of the challenges to perceive them as an opportunity, as a learning opportunity.
не заходити в
Not
кризу,
as a crisis, but actually seeking ways of self-actualization,
проявів себе,
maybe in order to show ourselves
існуючих, от те, про що говорила Роза, скажімо, в існуючих
existing
умовах.
Lithuanian
Це,
realities.
намагатися, тобто,
What Rosa was mentioning before, basically looking for ways to integrate based on the rules that are working here, and not to actually break the rules so that they work for us.
Things for Lithuanian society to understand that this is now the land, this is the place where there is a possibility to form real political, one of the places to form real political nations of Belarus and Russian democratic society.
Зворотня, де білоруси
It's vice versa, where Belarusians can play a more active role
ніж росіяни.
The Russians.
Якщо, можна сказати, союзну державу.
If I can say the alliance country, but vice versa.
I think that I do agree completely that yes, we are solving this problem and our teenagers show it. Yeah, but somebody has to, they do integrate, but somebody has to organize these contacts. So adults, for example, start working in Lithuanian organizations and they start learning and speaking Lithuanian very fast, having or making friends with Lithuanians and so on. So again, for different, I do not know why we do not make any steps for integration for different reasons, maybe psychological, some inner reasons. And so it's not only about migrants from Russia, but it's about all people who come to Lithuania. I think of it as a task for myself, and it would be, of course, very nice if we had more mutual professional events, for example, public events, because a lot of events can be held. But for me personally, I set it as a task for myself to learn Lithuanian history, to learn the origins of a modern Lithuanian state, because notwithstanding the fact that I am a historian myself and a politologist and a specialist on international relations, I have to admit I do not know much about Lithuania, and I would like to know much more in order to understand the context, because it's very, very important when you start learning the history of the country where you are, the history of this nation, you start understanding, you come to a deeper understanding, and you start to understand the processes, why everything is the way it is, and you start understanding the mentality. I have the same experience with Belarus, because I was an adult when I migrated to Belarus, and I learned Belarusian language not in the class, not at school, but through literature. I was also learning Belarusian history. So I'm setting it as a task for myself. It's not maybe integration in itself, because of course I want to go back to Belarus, and that's why I have joined the Coordination Council. But yes, this is for me as a respect to the country where I am now, and I think this is very important. This psychological state is of the utmost importance.
Your thoughts and insights, and I would like to wrap up with my general impression of this survey, where I see these high numbers of the hostility of the society towards Muslim immigration, towards mentally disabled people, towards homosexual people. I see this as a symptom of the, so to say, how big is the hostile, xenophobic, racist, and other phobic sentiments and instincts in the society. So I'm maybe wrong. So I see that it is only how the relatively low numbers of intolerance are towards Belarusians and Ukrainians, because they are seen more like belonging to us, to the title society, than other groups. But maybe if there is nothing done, there is no coherent, clear policy and contacts and dialogues, it's only the matter of time when these groups of people, will be approaching in the numbers of the hostility towards them, the main, so to say, champions. So on that note, I thank you all, and I'm glad to announce a coffee break.